May I?
This election, I think, is coming in May. I think it's definitely coming in May.
May nay.
Are you ready for a May election if it comes? Do you think there's any sniff of actually there being a general election in May?
No.
Maybe. These are the interesting times. Hello everyone, my name's Matt Johnston and welcome to The Interesting Times, a political comedy show from the UK. The show itself is taking a bit of a sabbatical at the moment, or at least I am, and so the show is. But I thought I would take this moment to have a look at something which is getting a lot of traction at the moment.
I think rumours of a May election are overstated at best.
And I think working people want change. And I think that's why, actually, there's going to be a May general election.
So my gut is now saying autumn and not May for the election.
Okay, so could it happen? Okay, before we get going, just to say, disclaimer, I'm not sure, obviously. And neither is this guy. Again, obviously. So a lot of talk has been about an early May election. Thinking being get Easter out the way and get the first flight to Rwanda in the first couple of weeks in April, and maybe, just spitballing here, but let's not act like the Tories won't be thinking of this, maybe try to make something out of the fact that it's St. George's Day on the 23rd of April and making the whole thing out of how come the English can't celebrate their national day. We can. We just don't. People have always been pretty underwhelmed about St. George's Day, certainly in my 50-odd years of being English, so much so, I bet you didn't even know that St. George's Day isn't even on the 23rd of April. Do you know when it is? If you want to pause the video, then go have a look. Okay. That's right. It is the 23rd of April, but I made you look though, didn't I? So, they'll probably have Jonathan Gullers strapped to the wing of a Rwanda-bound plane singing Royal Britannia at 30,000 feet. Despite the fact that St. George isn't English and never even set foot in England. But never mind all that. The point is that Rishi Sunak's bizarre hyperbolics on the steps of number 10 a couple of weeks ago shows that the Tories will try to fight this election on culture wars because, well, they can't really fight it on the economy. Even the 2p cut in national insurance will take time to trickle, and I do mean trickle down like so much yellow rain. So, to be clear, there needs to be 25 working days or about 5 or a little over weeks between calling it and having it. So if flights take off for Rwanda, then Tories might look at early to mid-May. But here's why they probably won't. First off, this man. Love him or loathe him.
And actually, it's probably a lot more uncomfortable for Keir Starmer having George Galloway in the Commons chamber for a couple of months. We saw the lengths Keir Starmer went to avoid a difficult vote last week on a ceasefire. Now he has George Galloway every day the Commons is sitting. He's going to try and exploit this division. So I think they at the very least want to try and give that a chance to go before they try and go to the polls.
Exactly. George Galloway winning Rochdale in Parliament is going to make things uncomfortable for Sunak. But in his own words, he is going to be a nightmare for Keir Starmer, and he's going to call out Starmer at every chance he gets. It will be interesting to see if he aligns himself with the SNP's moves to try to embarrass the Labour Party over Gaza. The longer that continues, the tougher it's going to be for Starmer. And just like Reform hoping to swipe Tory votes like they're swiping the Tory rejects, the Workers' Party of Britain wants to do the same for Labour. Another point is that Sunak has already said he believes that it's going to be later in the year. Now, I know that means that Sunak would be telling the truth, making it less likely. But the only people saying publicly that the election will be in May are Labour. Meaning Sunak can effectively say, oh, no, it's later in the year, probably November. Did Labour say that? Oh, Labour, always trying to lie to the great British public. Won't find us doing that. And if all the noise and readiness has been for May, and then it gets taken away at the last minute, it's going to be that little bit more difficult to get everyone to get to that level of energy again, which again suits the Tories. So, on to the number one reason the Tories will, again, probably, wait until autumn, and that is they get an extra 6 months in power. And that's not nothing, it's 10% of your entire term. And something may turn up. If they call it now, they're screwed. If they call it later, they're screwed. But at least calling it later means a bit of delayed gratification, which, if you're a Conservative MP, is less a mission and more of a life motto, let's be honest. And let's be honest, is not a Conservative's mission or life motto, just an antithesis. And for those saying yes, but with the exception of the last one, all the previous general elections dating back to 1974 were between April and June. Yes, when elections, parliaments, and indeed prime ministers used to be normal. If you're attempting to put any sort of routine, logic or sanity to what this current bad bunch of batches are likely to do, can I suggest that maybe UK politics isn't your thing? And I appreciate that doing it so it coincides with May 2nd local elections does mean that if they do suffer the sort of losses all the polls suggest, then at least at that point they will still have enough door knockers and leaflet stuffers working for them. But I can't help feeling it's kind of gone past that stage now. The same with clashing with US presidential elections. There's no doubt a feeling of who cares? So the Tories are not going to go to the polls in May, because if they go in November, then as I say, that's 6 months later, and they get an extra 6 months. But not only that, providing enough of them do survive, and hey, evil never dies, right? Then that also, by the same logic, gives Labour just 4.5 years to undo 14 years of Tory economic mismanagement, which, as we've seen, is just given as much of various infrastructure titles and cash to as many of their mates as possible, and playing the fruit machines with the rest of it. Although that's clearly not a Conservative gambling machine, as that bandit only has one arm. Of course, there is always the third possibility, waiting until the very last day, 28th of January, 2025. So if people think it's May, then it doesn't happen. Then people think it's November, then it doesn't happen. People might just assume that it isn't going to happen, which again, with the Tories, you can't always rule out. But this is unlikely, as Tory voters tend to be a little bit older. And okay, I'm just going to say it, winter tends to be a little bit colder. And if you can't even afford to put the heating on, well, yeah. Anyway. Oh, hello. Sorry about the jumping in like this, but what you've been watching was recorded last night. But then this showed up on my social media after I'd finished recording.
I've discovered that last night Rishi Sunak had a private, secret meeting with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of the 1922 committee. That is significant, Sophie, because when that happens, how can I put this? It often means something's up. Now, I can't tell you what was said in that meeting. I can't tell you any account of what's happening because nobody wants to go into detail. I just know that it was not on the schedule and people were surprised that it took place. The last equivalent meeting like that took place just before Liz Truss was dethroned.
Now, Greyman Brady may have just been bringing up a few concerns the Tories have, like why are they accepting donations from racists and misogynists when they could be taking donations from homophobic transphobes as well? Or why, after a decade and a half of underfunding, do all of our national institutions look like a cross between a Victorian shantytown and the last days of Pompeii after an asteroid hit? Or the simple fact that Rishi Sunak is so monumentally bad at his job, he's losing a popularity contest to Keir Starmer, the political equivalent of beige. And there could be 50 odd letters in, and they only need a few more to give him the old heave-ho. Here's what I think though. Sunak wanted to have the general election in May at the same time as the local elections, and Brady said the move from the rest of the party was go in autumn. And if he tried to call a May election, then the party would have a leadership election.
Not another one?
Oh yes, and that the Tories are now so unpopular, they've forgotten what the word popular means, as evidenced by the popular Conservatives being led by this one. And the only option for a lot of them come the next general election is political oblivion, one way or another. So Sunak is no doubt worried about a leadership election, which he'll lose, or a general election, which he'll lose. So I'm guessing that he's made a pact to say, don't have a leadership election and I won't have a May general election. Anyone remember when the UK used to be a democracy? Anyway, sorry for the interruption. Back to me last night. Should have worn a different suit. So, quick recap. Tories keep jobs for 6 months rather than not, and the only thing to consider about all of this is, I could be wrong. I'm going to put up an interesting Times poll and see who is right and who's wrong. What fun. Thanks everyone for watching and listening. And please subscribe, like, share and hit all the notifications button. You don't want to miss another one. And I'll see you all Sunday. Take care.